The overthinker's fatigue isn't just a matter of feeling tired after a long day. It's a profound sense of weariness that comes from inhabiting a mind that never stops calculating, judging, and isolating itself from the world outside. This constant internal dialogue is not merely an inconvenience. It is a sophisticated wall that separates you from reality. Your intelligence has become a fortress of reason, a sanctuary where you can feel superior while remaining safe from the challenges and uncertainties of life. The weight of this mental prison is felt most acutely in moments of silence or stillness. The mind's relentless chatter becomes even more noticeable when there's no external stimulus to distract it. This internal noise serves as a barrier, preventing you from being present in the moment. It obstructs your ability to experience life directly and fully, reducing existence to a series of mental exercises rather than an unfolding tapestry of sensory experiences. The brain is evolutionarily programmed to protect us by constantly scanning for threats and opportunities. In prehistoric times, this function was vital for survival. However, in the modern world, it has outlived its purpose and turned into a source of stress and anxiety. Your mind now operates like an overzealous security system that identifies potential dangers where none exist. This hypervigilance is exhausting because it requires constant mental effort to maintain. The irony lies in how this relentless activity is not a sign of deep thinking, but rather a means of rationalizing your isolation. You aren't using your intelligence to gain insight. You are employing it as an elaborate defense mechanism that keeps you distant from the world and its challenges. By constantly analyzing and overthinking, you create a buffer zone between yourself and reality. The result is a sense of superiority rooted in disconnection rather than genuine understanding. To escape this mental prison, the first step is recognizing the burden of being the one who understands. This title places an immense weight on your shoulders. Expectations to solve problems, explain phenomena, and provide answers. However, true wisdom often lies not in knowing everything, but in acknowledging what you don't know, and accepting that some questions have no definitive answers. Embracing uncertainty doesn't diminish intelligence. It liberates the mind from the confines of its own making. This journey towards liberation begins with putting down the burden of perpetual analysis and judgment. Instead, it involves cultivating an openness to experience without immediate need for interpretation or critique. By observing thoughts as they arise and then letting them go, you allow yourself to exist in the moment rather than forever living within your head. This shift from mental activity to presence is a profound act of self-discovery, one that reveals the richness of life beyond logical constructs. Ultimately, recognizing the suffocating nature of constant thought opens up new possibilities for engagement with reality. It invites you to step out of your mind's protective bubble and into the vibrant complexity of existence as it unfolds around you. The invitation is clear. Let go of the mental cage that imprisons your essence and embrace a fuller, more authentic experience of life. The concept of being perpetually ensnared by one's intellect is not novel. Philosophers throughout history have grappled with this dilemma, each offering unique insights into the nature of mental confinement and liberation. For instance, Søren Kierkegaard, a Danish philosopher often regarded as the father of existentialism, wrote extensively about the individual's struggle against societal norms and intellectual traps that stifle genuine personal growth and development. His works emphasize the importance of making authentic choices rather than conforming to the dictates of reason alone, a stance that echoes Carl Jung's notion of transcending over-intellectualization. Moreover, the idea of liberation through embracing uncertainty finds resonance in various Eastern philosophies. Buddhism, for example, teaches the concept of emptiness, or sunyata, which posits that all phenomena are devoid of inherent existence and are interconnected with other phenomena. This perspective encourages practitioners to see beyond superficial labels and categorizations imposed by rational thought, embracing a fluid understanding of reality. In contemporary psychology, the notion of cognitive dissonance, introduced by Leon Festimer in 1957, offers another layer of insight into mental entrapment. Cognitive dissonance occurs when an individual holds two contradictory beliefs or experiences logical inconsistency between their actions and beliefs, leading to psychological stress. This theory underscores how our minds naturally seek consistency and can become rigid as a coping mechanism against discomfort, a behavior that mirrors the intellectual rigidity discussed by Jung. The implications of mental confinement are profound, affecting not only personal well-being, but also societal dynamics. Over-reliance on logical constructs can lead to an inability to empathize or understand others who do not conform to one's own understanding of reality. This disconnection fosters a sense of superiority and detachment, contributing to social fragmentation and conflict. By recognizing the limitations of our intellects, individuals can foster greater empathy and compassion towards those who think differently. Lesser-known aspects of intellectual liberation include the role of creativity in breaking free from mental cages. Creativity is often associated with the ability to generate novel ideas and solutions by thinking beyond conventional boundaries. However, it also involves the capacity for introspection and self-reflection that allows one to examine their own thought processes critically. This dual nature of creativity, both divergent and introspective, facilitates a balanced approach to problem-solving and personal growth. Another dimension worth exploring is the relationship between intellectualism and spirituality. While many might view these realms as diametrically opposed, there are numerous instances where they intersect productively. For example, some individuals find that engaging in spiritual practices such as meditation or mindfulness can provide a counterbalance to their analytical tendencies. These practices encourage an experiential understanding of reality rather than one based solely on intellectual reasoning. Historically, figures like Albert Einstein have exemplified the importance of balancing intellect with intuition and imagination. In his famous essay on the method of theoretical physics, Einstein stated that imagination is more important than knowledge. This statement underscores the value of embracing uncertainty and the unknown in scientific inquiry, suggesting that true innovation often emerges from stepping outside the bounds of established knowledge. In the context of modern society, the proliferation of information and technological advancements has exacerbated the challenge of intellectual confinement. The ease with which individuals can access vast amounts of data may paradoxically lead to a sense of information overload and disorientation. This phenomenon highlights the necessity for developing mental practices that help navigate this complex landscape without succumbing to overwhelming analysis paralysis. Finally, it is crucial to recognize that the journey towards liberating oneself from intellectual entrapment is not linear but iterative. It involves constant questioning and reevaluation of one's thought patterns and beliefs. This process of continuous self-discovery can be both challenging and rewarding, offering individuals a path toward greater authenticity and fulfillment. In essence, while intellect undoubtedly serves as an invaluable tool for understanding the world, it is equally important to acknowledge its limitations and the potential for mental imprisonment. By cultivating mindfulness, embracing uncertainty, fostering creativity, and balancing intellectual pursuits with spiritual or experiential practices, individuals can transcend the confines of over-reliance on reason and embrace a more holistic approach to living. Jung's exploration of intellectual confinement extends beyond mere theoretical discourse, delving into the psychological and philosophical ramifications of over-reliance on intellect. One of his key insights is the concept of individuation, which posits that true self-realization involves integrating unconscious elements with conscious awareness. In a world dominated by rational thought, this process can be particularly challenging, as it requires individuals to confront their shadow selves, the darker aspects of personality, often suppressed due to societal norms and personal conditioning. Historically, the tension between intellect and intuition has been a recurring theme in philosophical debates. Plato's allegory of the cave illustrates how knowledge gained through sensory experiences can be misleading compared to abstract reasoning. Similarly, Descartes' methodological skepticism highlighted the importance of doubting everything that is not certain to establish a foundation for reliable knowledge. While these approaches have contributed significantly to Western intellectual traditions, they also underscore the potential pitfalls of overemphasizing rationality at the expense of emotional and intuitive understanding. The Industrial Revolution marked a pivotal shift in societal values, placing an unprecedented premium on efficiency and scientific rigor. This period saw the emergence of positivism, a philosophical stance asserting that only empirical evidence derived from sensory experience should be considered valid knowledge. While this approach facilitated significant advancements in technology and science, it also contributed to the marginalization of spiritual and emotional dimensions of human existence. Consequently, many individuals found themselves adrift in a sea of material progress without a compass for navigating their inner worlds. In contemporary society, the digital age has intensified these dynamics. The proliferation of information through the internet, social media platforms, and other technological tools has made it easier than ever to accumulate knowledge. However, this abundance can paradoxically lead to cognitive overload and fragmentation of attention. Individuals may find themselves constantly processing new data without sufficient time for introspection or meaningful engagement with ideas. This phenomenon is sometimes referred to as infobesity, the excessive accumulation of information that hinders rather than enhances decision-making. One lesser-known aspect of intellectual entrapment is the role of language in shaping thought patterns. As proposed by linguist Benjamin Lee Whorf, language influences not just how we communicate, but also our perception of reality and cognitive processes. For instance, cultures with a rich vocabulary for expressing emotions might encourage more nuanced emotional awareness compared to those lacking such linguistic resources. Similarly, scientific discourse often relies heavily on precise definitions and logical structures, potentially limiting the scope for creative or abstract thinking. Moreover, the educational systems in many societies prioritize rote learning and standardized testing over critical thinking and creativity. This emphasis can foster an environment where students are rewarded for memorizing facts rather than questioning them. Such practices may inadvertently discourage intellectual curiosity and openness to new ideas. It is thus essential to balance traditional academic rigor with pedagogical approaches that nurture imagination, flexibility of thought, and emotional intelligence. At a societal level, the consequences of intellectual confinement can manifest in various ways. One notable example is the echo chamber effect, the phenomenon where individuals tend to engage primarily with information and opinions that reinforce their existing beliefs. This tendency can exacerbate social polarization and hinder constructive dialogue across ideological divides. By contrast, embracing uncertainty and engaging with diverse perspectives can enrich one's intellectual landscape and foster more empathetic and nuanced understanding of complex issues. In addressing the challenge of mental imprisonment, several strategies have been proposed. Mindfulness practices such as meditation are increasingly recognized for their ability to enhance focus, reduce stress, and promote emotional balance. These techniques encourage individuals to observe their thoughts without judgment, thereby facilitating a deeper awareness of unconscious processes and habitual thought patterns. Similarly, creative endeavors like writing, painting, or composing music provide outlets for expressing emotions and intuitions that may not find articulation through conventional intellectual means. The concept of flow, introduced by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, offers another valuable perspective on the interplay between intellect and creativity. Flow describes a state of optimal experience where individuals become fully immersed in an activity characterized by high challenge and skill level. In this state, time seems to dissolve as one becomes wholly engaged with the task at hand, be it solving a complex problem or creating art. This phenomenon highlights the importance of finding balance between intellectual pursuit and experiential engagement for achieving personal fulfillment. Ultimately, transcending the prison of intellect requires not only developing new mental habits, but also nurturing an appreciation for the intangible aspects of human experience. By cultivating mindfulness, embracing uncertainty, fostering creativity, and engaging in reflective practices, individuals can navigate the complexities of modern life while maintaining a sense of authenticity and connection to their deeper selves. This holistic approach acknowledges the limitations of pure rationality while celebrating the richness of emotional insight and intuitive wisdom. The intellectual persona, crafted to navigate the complexities of our society, is often perceived as a badge of honor. It shields us from vulnerability and presents an image of infallibility, but it also distorts the very essence of who we are. Carl Jung's concept of the persona offers profound insights into this phenomenon. Jung described the persona as a mask that individuals adopt to fit societal expectations and gain social approval. For the intelligent individual, this mask is constructed from a lifetime of accomplishments and academic successes. It serves not only as a barrier against criticism, but also as a means to avoid confronting one's inner fears and insecurities. As we grow up in educational systems that emphasize cognitive prowess over emotional intelligence, we begin to identify with our intellect rather than our full selves. The persona becomes a performance, a carefully curated image of perfection designed to mask any vulnerabilities or weaknesses. We fear being ordinary, unremarkable, or even worse, stupid in the eyes of others. This constant need for validation and approval is exhausting. It demands that we maintain an image of infallibility, which leads us to intellectualize every aspect of life. We rationalize our actions, justify our decisions, and compartmentalize our emotions, all to keep up appearances. This performance drains us of energy and leaves little room for genuine human connection or authentic experiences. The persona not only hides vulnerability, but also isolates us from the rich tapestry of human experience. By identifying with our thoughts rather than our feelings, we miss out on the nuances and complexities that make life meaningful. We become characters in a script written by societal expectations, rather than living true to ourselves. Moreover, the persona serves as a defense mechanism against the unpredictable nature of reality. It creates an illusion of control over our lives and relationships, which ultimately leads to psychic paralysis. The fear of being seen as less than perfect prevents us from taking risks or embracing uncertainty, qualities essential for personal growth and creativity. The ego uses big ideas to distract from small pains. We become preoccupied with grand theories and intellectual pursuits, while ignoring the day-to-day challenges that require emotional resilience and compassion. This imbalance between mental prowess and emotional depth can lead to a sense of emptiness or dissatisfaction, as our lives lack meaning beyond surface-level achievements. The exhaustion of maintaining this image is palpable. The constant effort required to uphold an idealized persona takes its toll on both mental and physical health. It leaves little room for spontaneity, creativity, or genuine human connection. As we strive to remain infallible, we forget the beauty in imperfection. The irony lies in the fact that this mask of intelligence is a performance designed to hide vulnerability. True depth comes from acknowledging our flaws and embracing the full spectrum of human experience, not just the intellectual one. When we let go of the need for perfection, we open ourselves up to a more authentic existence, one where vulnerabilities are seen as strengths rather than weaknesses. The realization that your identity as a thinker is a performance designed to hide vulnerability begins the journey toward wholeness. By embracing our imperfections and acknowledging the emotional dimensions of life, we can break free from the constraints imposed by the intellectual persona. This shift allows us to connect more deeply with ourselves and others, fostering genuine relationships built on mutual understanding rather than surface-level admiration. In summary, the intellectual persona is a double-edged sword. While it offers protection from societal judgment, it also stifles personal growth and emotional depth. To move beyond this facade, One must embrace vulnerability and acknowledge that true intelligence lies not in maintaining an image, but in living authentically. By letting go of the need for perfection, we can unlock a richer, more fulfilling life, one where our intellect serves as a tool rather than a prison. Carl Jung's exploration of the intellectual persona delves into a psychological concept that has been discussed by philosophers and psychologists throughout history. Plato, for example, argued about the importance of reason over emotion, but also acknowledged the dangers of rationality when it becomes overly dominant in one's life. Similarly, Aristotle emphasized the virtue of finding balance between extremes, which can be seen as an early commentary on how becoming too intellectual could lead to neglecting emotional health. In modern psychology, Sigmund Freud's theories around defense mechanisms, such as repression and denial, align closely with Jung's view of the intellectual persona. Freud posited that individuals use these mechanisms to protect themselves from distressing thoughts or feelings by unconsciously pushing them aside. In a similar vein, the intellectual persona acts as a conscious mechanism where an individual actively hides their vulnerabilities under a mask of intellect. One can observe this phenomenon in various real-life scenarios. Consider the case of a highly accomplished academic who excels in logical reasoning and problem-solving, but struggles with personal relationships due to perceived emotional shortcomings. This individual may have developed a strong intellectual persona from early on, possibly as a way to cope with feelings of inadequacy or insecurity. Over time, this facade becomes deeply ingrained, making it difficult for the person to recognize their true emotions and connect meaningfully with others. The implications of living behind an intellectual mask are profound and multifaceted. On one hand, there is the risk of developing a skewed sense of self-worth tied exclusively to cognitive achievements rather than emotional intelligence or interpersonal skills. This can lead to feelings of isolation and disconnection from oneself and others, as well as missed opportunities for personal growth through authentic human interactions. Moreover, excessive reliance on intellectual prowess often results in diminished creativity and innovation. When one's identity is solely tied to rational thought processes, there may be less room for embracing ambiguity or exploring unconventional ideas that stem from intuitive insights or emotional experiences. This restriction can stifle both individual potential and broader societal progress, as breakthroughs frequently arise at the intersection of diverse perspectives. Interestingly enough, some researchers argue that high levels of cognitive ability do not necessarily correlate with greater overall happiness or satisfaction in life. In fact, studies have shown that individuals who cultivate a balanced approach to both intellectual and emotional development tend to report higher levels of well-being. This underscores the importance of moving beyond the constraints imposed by the intellectual persona towards an integrated sense of self. To move past this facade requires courage and introspection. It begins with acknowledging the limitations of one's current identity and recognizing the value in exploring lesser-known aspects of oneself. Practices such as mindfulness meditation, journaling about emotions, engaging in creative activities like art or music, and seeking out meaningful relationships can all help individuals start to peel back layers of their intellectual mask. It's crucial to note that embracing vulnerability does not mean abandoning intellect, but rather finding a harmonious balance between the two. As we allow ourselves to be more emotionally transparent, we enrich our intellectual pursuits by incorporating fresh perspectives derived from lived experiences and emotional understanding. This holistic approach leads to deeper insights and a richer appreciation for the complexity of human existence. In essence, transcending the limitations imposed by the intellectual persona opens up new possibilities for personal growth and fulfillment. By acknowledging our vulnerabilities and embracing a more authentic way of being, we not only improve our individual lives but also contribute positively to society as wholehearted individuals capable of forming genuine connections and fostering mutual understanding. The concept of transcending the intellectual persona is not new. It has roots in various philosophical and psychological traditions throughout history. Ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle emphasized the importance of achieving eudaimonia, or flourishing life that goes beyond mere intellectual pursuit, to include virtuous action and emotional well-being. Similarly, in Eastern philosophy, the concept of wu-wei in Taoism encourages individuals to act from an intuitive place rather than solely relying on rational thought, highlighting the value of allowing one's true nature to guide actions rather than rigid adherence to intellectual constructs. Jungian psychology further elucidates this idea through its emphasis on individuation, a lifelong process of integrating unconscious and conscious aspects of oneself. This involves recognizing that one's shadow or repressed thoughts, feelings, and desires plays an integral role in personal development. By confronting the shadow, individuals can begin to balance their intellectual persona with other facets of themselves, leading to a more holistic sense of self. One lesser-known aspect of transcending the intellectual persona is its impact on creativity. Many artists and thinkers have found that by moving beyond purely rational thought patterns, they access new realms of creativity that challenge conventional boundaries. For example, Virginia Woolf's stream of consciousness writing technique in novels like Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lark reflects an attempt to capture the fluidity of human experience through a narrative style that breaks away from traditional logical structures. This approach not only enriches literature, but also provides readers with profound insights into the complexities of the human mind. Another critical dimension of this journey involves embracing vulnerability as a strength rather than a weakness. Vulnerability, according to researchers like Bren Brown, is at the heart of meaningful connection and innovation. When individuals let go of the facade created by their intellectual persona, they open themselves up to genuine emotional exchange with others. This authenticity fosters deeper relationships built on mutual understanding and support. Moreover, transcending the intellectual persona has significant implications for leadership in professional settings. Leaders who embrace vulnerability are more likely to inspire trust and loyalty among team members. By acknowledging their limitations and seeking feedback openly, they create an environment where ideas can flow freely without fear of judgment or failure. This culture not only enhances innovation, but also promotes mental health within organizations by reducing the pressure associated with maintaining a perfect image. In educational systems, there is growing recognition that overemphasis on standardized testing and rigid academic frameworks stifles creativity and emotional intelligence among students. Initiatives such as STEAM education aim to integrate arts into traditional STEM disciplines, fostering a more balanced approach that values both analytical skills and creative thinking. Moving beyond the intellectual persona also necessitates reevaluating societal perceptions of success. Traditional markers like academic achievements or professional accolades often fail to capture the full spectrum of human capabilities and aspirations. By promoting a broader definition of success that includes emotional well-being, personal growth, and meaningful contributions to society, individuals are encouraged to pursue paths aligned with their authentic selves rather than conforming to external expectations. In conclusion, transcending one's intellectual persona is an ongoing journey that requires constant self-reflection and openness to change. It challenges the status quo of modern life, where intellectual prowess is often celebrated at the expense of emotional depth and personal fulfillment. Through embracing vulnerability, creativity, and a more nuanced understanding of success, individuals can break free from the limitations imposed by their intellectual masks and lead lives richer in meaning and authenticity. The logic trap begins as we delve deeper into the psyche of the overthinker, revealing how our minds can become prisons rather than tools for liberation. The journey so far has taken us through understanding the silent exhaustion and the intellectual persona, where intelligence becomes a mask to shield vulnerability. Now, let's explore another layer of this complexity: the logic trap. The mind is an incredible tool, capable of solving complex equations and navigating intricate philosophical debates. Yet when it comes to emotions, Our rationality often fails us miserably. The logic trap is the belief that every problem can be solved with reason, leading us into a state of psychic paralysis, where we are unable to truly experience life. Imagine standing in front of an open door, knowing that behind it lies something both wonderful and terrifying, the unknown. Your mind starts calculating all possible scenarios. What if I fail? What if I succeed? What if the outcome is neither black nor white, but a spectrum of grays? The more you think, the less you act. You find yourself trapped in a labyrinth of your own making, where every exit seems to be blocked by a new logic puzzle. This is not just an abstract concept, it's a real psychological phenomenon. When we rely too heavily on reason, we neglect intuition, emotion, and spontaneity, the very things that make life worth living. Our minds become so adept at problem solving that they begin treating emotions as problems to be solved rather than experiences to be felt. Consider the story of Archimedes, a brilliant mathematician who once exclaimed "Eureka" upon discovering the principle of buoyancy while taking a bath. His excitement was not born from logical deduction, but from an intuitive moment where body and mind were in perfect harmony. This is what we lose when we fall into the logic trap, the ability to live in that blissful space between thought and feeling. The philosopher Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." While this is true, it can be misleading if taken out of context. A more balanced view would suggest that an examined life should also include periods where we let go of constant scrutiny and simply exist. The logic trap convinces us that every moment must have a purpose, every feeling must be justified by reason. But what about moments of joy for no apparent reason, of pain that cannot be rationalized but is felt deeply? The psychologist Carl Jung spoke extensively about the importance of balancing logos with eros. He warned against over-identifying with logos, which leads to a form of psychic anorexia, where one starves their emotional life in pursuit of intellectual perfection. The result is a hollow victory. You may have mastered logic but missed out on the richness of experience. In practical terms, this trap manifests as chronic procrastination, perfectionism, and analysis paralysis. How many times have you started writing an essay only to spend hours researching instead, or planned a project meticulously for weeks without ever taking action? This is the logic trap at work, using reason to avoid the risks of real-world engagement. Why does this matter? Because life isn't about solving puzzles, it's about living them. The philosopher Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." When we replace our why with endless questions and answers, we risk losing sight of the beauty in simply being alive. The difference between knowing something intellectually and truly understanding it is vast. Knowing that you should feel happy doesn't make you actually experience happiness. Living your life as if happiness was possible does. The same applies to love, fear, joy. All emotions are meant to be lived, not dissected on a mental autopsy table. The logic trap also affects our ability to take risks and embrace uncertainty. We know logically that every venture involves risk, but we often fail to act because of the imagined scenarios that never come true. The poet Rumi once wrote, "Let the beauty you not be what you do." Yet how many artists spend more time reading books on creativity than creating art? The smartest people are often the most paralyzed by choice, not just because they overthink, but because they fear making a mistake. They see every decision as a potential failure rather than an opportunity to learn and grow. This isn't about being indecisive or lazy. It's about fearing that your intellect will judge you if you act without perfect logic. The relief comes when we admit our minds are incapable of understanding existence fully. To quote the psychologist James Hillman, "We do not need to know why something is so as much as we need to feel its so-ness." This admission allows us to embrace life's mysteries instead of trying to solve them. Ultimately, the logic trap teaches us that while our minds are incredibly powerful tools for solving problems, they are inadequate at living lives. By recognizing this limitation and choosing to let go of constant analysis, we open ourselves up to a world of richer experiences and deeper connections. The journey out of the logic trap begins with acknowledging its existence. It continues by embracing the uncertainty of life as an adventure rather than a series of puzzles to solve. In essence, the final act of intelligence is to recognize its own limits and remain silent. When we stop trying to control every aspect of our lives through logic, we allow ourselves to experience reality in all its complexity and beauty. We transition from thinking to being, understanding that not knowing is an acceptable state, and that the space between thoughts can be a source of profound peace. The roots of this intellectual trap stretch back through centuries, intertwined with philosophical debates about knowledge and existence. From ancient Greek philosophers like Plato and Aristotle to modern thinkers such as Descartes and Kant, there has been an ongoing quest to understand the limits of human cognition. This pursuit often manifests in a desire for certainty, which paradoxically leads many into the very trap they seek to avoid: the belief that everything must be perfectly rationalized before action can be taken. Plato's allegory of the cave illustrates this dilemma well. Individuals trapped in darkness can only perceive shadows on the walls and assume these are reality. It is not until one ventures outside the cave into the full light of day that they begin to grasp a more complete picture of existence. This journey from ignorance to enlightenment parallels the transition from an over-reliance on logic to embracing life's inherent uncertainties. The implications of this intellectual trap extend far beyond personal decision-making. It can affect societal structures and cultural norms as well. In our current age, characterized by rapid technological advancements and information overload, people often feel pressured to make decisions based solely on data-driven analysis, rather than intuition or emotional intelligence. This leads to a homogenization of thought processes, where creativity and spontaneous innovation suffer. One lesser-known aspect of this dilemma is the concept of the cognitive echo chamber, where individuals seek out information and perspectives that reinforce their existing beliefs, thereby limiting exposure to alternative viewpoints. This phenomenon can exacerbate logical thinking traps by narrowing the scope of one's cognitive framework, making it harder for an individual to recognize and question assumptions they hold dear. Jung himself warned against the dangers of intellectual over-reliance in his work on psychological types, where he introduced concepts like introversion and extroversion. These personality traits influence how individuals process information and interact with their environment. For instance, a highly logical, analytical mind may be more inclined toward introverted thinking, leading to an intense focus on internal logic at the expense of external realities and emotional connections. Historically, this intellectual trap has manifested in various ways. During the Enlightenment period, thinkers like René Descartes emphasized rationalism as a way to combat superstition and ignorance. However, his famous dictum, "I think, therefore I am," can be seen as both a liberation from dogmatic thinking and a potential trap. By placing excessive value on the power of reason alone, individuals risk neglecting other modes of knowing, such as sensory experience, emotion, or spiritual insight. A notable example from the 20th century is Bertrand Russell's emphasis on logical positivism, which advocated for scientific method as the only reliable means of acquiring knowledge. While this approach greatly advanced empirical research and philosophy, it also had its critics who pointed out that it could lead to an overly rigid worldview, where non-empirical experiences like art, spirituality, or moral reasoning are devalued. In more recent times, the rise of artificial intelligence highlights another dimension of this logical thinking trap. AI systems excel at processing vast amounts of data and identifying patterns with unprecedented speed and accuracy. However, they often lack the contextual understanding and ethical reasoning that humans bring to decision-making processes. This has led some thinkers to question whether an over-reliance on algorithmic solutions might lead to unintended consequences in areas like governance, healthcare, or personal relationships. Psychologically, the trap of excessive logic can manifest as a fear of ambiguity and uncertainty. Individuals caught in this web may find themselves constantly seeking clear-cut answers and definitive proof for every aspect of life. This mindset can impede creativity because it discourages exploration beyond well-trodden paths and established paradigms. Moreover, there is evidence suggesting that an over-reliance on logic can negatively impact mental health. Studies have shown correlations between high analytical thinking styles and increased risk for conditions like depression and anxiety, possibly due to heightened awareness of cognitive dissonance or existential dilemmas without emotional balance to provide relief. On a broader societal level, the intellectual trap poses significant challenges in areas such as education and public policy. Educational systems often prioritize logical reasoning skills at the expense of cultivating emotional intelligence and critical thinking that encompasses diverse perspectives. Similarly, policymakers who overly rely on quantitative data might overlook qualitative factors like social dynamics, cultural context, or individual human experiences when crafting laws and regulations. A lesser-known aspect related to this intellectual trap is its impact on creative industries and innovation. In fields where novel ideas are highly valued, excessive focus on logical reasoning can stifle originality. Creative processes often benefit from intuitive leaps and non-linear thinking, which allow for the synthesis of seemingly unrelated concepts, an approach that might be discouraged in environments dominated by rigid logic. To navigate this intellectual trap effectively requires a balanced approach to knowledge acquisition and decision-making. This involves acknowledging the limitations of pure rationalism, while also integrating insights from other domains such as art, philosophy, spirituality, or even intuition. By fostering a more holistic cognitive framework that respects multiple ways of knowing, individuals can better adapt to an increasingly complex world. Ultimately, breaking free from the intellectual trap necessitates cultivating what Jung referred to as individuation, the process of integrating unconscious aspects of oneself into conscious awareness. This journey entails not only expanding one's logical abilities, but also deepening emotional and spiritual understanding. It encourages embracing life's complexities rather than seeking simplistic solutions. Every light has a shadow, and for the intellectual, this shadow casts long and deep. The more you prize your logic, the more terrifying your suppressed emotions become. By neglecting the irrational parts of your soul, you create an internal monster that will eventually sabotage your life through anxiety and burnout. For Carl Jung, the concept of the shadow is not just a theoretical construct, it's a psychological reality that every individual must confront in their journey towards self-realization. The shadow embodies everything we consider stupid, irrational, or primitive. All those aspects of ourselves that are too uncomfortable to acknowledge and integrate into our conscious awareness. For the intellectual, these shadow elements often include feelings of vulnerability, fear, anger, and desire, qualities that are seen as weaknesses in a world where rationality is highly valued. The shadow, according to Jungian psychology, acts like an emotional black hole, sucking in all the energy we pour into maintaining our logical persona. The more effort you put into keeping up appearances of being intelligent and reasonable, the more psychological space you leave unattended for these darker aspects to grow unchecked. This leads to a split within oneself, where the I that presents a polished exterior is at odds with an inner self that feels raw and exposed. Consider the life of the typical high-achieving intellectual, a person who has spent years building up their reputation as someone who always knows what they're doing, who never fails or makes mistakes. This persona serves not only to impress others, but also to shield oneself from vulnerability and uncertainty. Yet beneath this armor lies a deep-seated fear of being seen for one's imperfections, a terror that can be traced back to childhood experiences where being smart was valued above all else. The irony is stark. The more you identify with your intellect, the more isolated you become from the emotional truth of yourself. This isolation doesn't just create distance between oneself and others. It creates a psychological rift within oneself, a schism that can only be healed by acknowledging and integrating these hidden aspects of one's nature. Embracing one's shadow is not about indulging in negative emotions or succumbing to irrationality, but rather about recognizing them as part of the human experience. It means learning to see your vulnerabilities as strengths rather than weaknesses. For example, fear can be seen as a signal for growth and change, anger as a call to stand up for oneself and set boundaries. Anger and vulnerability are not just emotions to manage or suppress. They hold within them the seeds of personal transformation. By neglecting these aspects of ourselves, we create an internal monster that will eventually sabotage our lives. Anxiety becomes a constant companion, burnout looms as a threat on the horizon, and relationships suffer because we fail to connect authentically with others, and even ourselves. This disconnection is not just psychological, it's physiological too. Stress hormones flood the system when we are out of sync with our true selves, leading to physical ailments such as chronic fatigue, insomnia, and weakened immune systems. To face this internal monster, one must first accept that there is no escape from the shadow. It's an integral part of who you are. The path towards wholeness requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to look within. This process can be painful, but it's also liberating. By acknowledging your fears, desires, and irrationalities, you begin to build a more authentic relationship with yourself and others. For the intellectual, this journey often begins by questioning the belief that reason is superior to emotion. It's a radical shift in perspective, one that challenges deeply ingrained beliefs about intelligence and success. This new way of seeing invites a deeper connection with one's intuition and creativity, qualities that are often overshadowed by an over-reliance on logic. The danger of over-identifying with the logos is that it creates a dichotomy between mind and heart, leading to a fragmented sense of self. Embracing your shadow means acknowledging that these two aspects of your nature are interconnected and essential for wholeness. The path to true understanding requires integrating both reason and intuition. By embracing the foolish or irrational parts of oneself, those qualities we've been taught to suppress, the intellectual can begin to heal from within. This does not mean abandoning logic. Rather, it means finding a balance between rationality and emotional depth. It's about recognizing that wisdom is not just in knowing facts, but also in understanding feelings. Ultimately, the journey towards wholeness involves facing your fears and stepping into vulnerability. It's about forgiving yourself for being human and accepting that you don't have to be perfect or always have answers. This acceptance can lead to a profound sense of relief and liberation from the pressures imposed by societal expectations and personal perfectionism. In embracing one's shadow, the intellectual finds freedom from the prison of their own mind, a place where true growth and transformation become possible. It's here that intelligence is no longer seen as a barrier, but as an ally in navigating life with depth and authenticity. The concept of embracing one's shadow is not unique to modern psychology. It has roots in ancient philosophies and spiritual traditions. For instance, in Greek philosophy, the idea of the sophrosine, a term describing self-control and moderation, emphasizes the importance of balancing reason with emotional restraint. Similarly, in Taoism, the concept of yin and yang illustrates how opposing forces are interconnected and essential for harmony in life. In contemporary society, the pressure to conform to societal norms often leads individuals, particularly those who value intelligence highly, to suppress their shadow aspects. This suppression can lead to a variety of psychological issues, such as anxiety, depression, and feelings of isolation. For example, a brilliant scientist may excel at solving complex equations, but struggle with emotional relationships due to neglecting the intuitive and empathetic parts of themselves. Carl Jung's theory of individuation emphasizes the importance of integrating unconscious elements into conscious awareness. to achieve wholeness. This process involves acknowledging and accepting one's shadow as an integral part of personal growth. By doing so, individuals can develop a more balanced perspective on their strengths and weaknesses, fostering resilience in the face of challenges. One lesser-known aspect of this journey is the role of dreams and fantasy in understanding one's shadow. Dreams often reveal unconscious desires, fears, and conflicts that are not easily accessible through waking life cognition. By analyzing these dream elements, individuals can gain insight into their shadow and begin to address unresolved issues. For instance, a highly analytical person might have recurring dreams about being lost or unable to find direction, which could indicate a need to reconnect with intuition and creativity. In practical terms, integrating the shadow involves actively seeking out experiences that challenge one's rational perspective. This can include engaging in activities like art therapy, creative writing, or even learning a new skill that requires emotional intelligence rather than logical reasoning. By immersing oneself in these experiences, individuals can gradually bridge the gap between their intellectual and intuitive selves. Moreover, embracing the shadow isn't just about personal growth. It also has broader implications for society. In an era dominated by technological advancement and data-driven decision-making, there's a growing need to balance rationality with compassion and empathy. Leaders in various fields, from business to politics, can benefit from integrating their shadow aspects to foster more holistic and empathetic approaches to problem-solving. The journey towards embracing the shadow is often fraught with challenges. It requires courage to confront one's deepest fears and vulnerabilities, which can be daunting for those accustomed to maintaining a facade of intellectual superiority. However, this process also opens up new avenues for creativity and innovation, as individuals are no longer constrained by rigid thought patterns. It's important to note that integrating the shadow is an ongoing process rather than a one-time event. Just as the rational mind requires constant refinement through education and experience, so too does the intuitive self need nurturing and development. This continuous integration helps prevent the re-emergence of disowned aspects in more destructive forms. In conclusion, while intelligence undoubtedly offers numerous advantages, it can also create barriers to personal growth if not balanced with emotional depth and intuition. By embracing one's shadow, individuals can transcend these limitations and experience a richer, more fulfilling life. This process is not only transformative on an individual level, but also has the potential to contribute positively to societal well-being. From a young age, many of us are labeled as the smart one, often carrying this title into adulthood with immense pressure to live up to it. This label is both a blessing and a curse. While it opens doors to opportunities, it also creates an insurmountable burden of expectation that can stifle personal growth and creativity. The gifted child curse begins in the formative years when a child's intellectual prowess sets them apart from their peers. They are praised for solving complex problems, acing tests, and understanding concepts beyond their years. As they grow older, this label becomes an integral part of their identity, leading to an internal dialogue that constantly seeks validation through academic or professional achievements. This constant pursuit of excellence often comes at a cost. The fear of failure looms large, preventing many from taking risks or exploring new paths outside the realm of logic and reason. The gifted child's mind is conditioned to solve problems rather than experience life fully, leading to a disconnection from their emotions and intuition. Historically, this phenomenon has been observed in various cultures where intelligence is highly esteemed. In ancient Greece, for example, philosophers like Plato and Aristotle revered rational thought above all else, setting the foundation for Western intellectual traditions that prioritize logic over emotion. However, as Jungian psychology reveals, neglecting emotional depth can lead to psychological imbalances. The gifted child curse manifests in several ways. Firstly, it creates a barrier between potential and actualization. The pressure to constantly perform at peak levels prevents individuals from taking the necessary steps to realize their full potential. They may become paralyzed by the fear of failure, or making mistakes, leading to stagnation rather than growth. Moreover, this curse can also lead to emotional repression. The gifted child learns early on that emotions are a weakness and must be controlled. As they grow older, unresolved feelings often resurface in destructive ways, such as anxiety, depression, and burnout. These psychological issues serve as reminders of the unaddressed aspects of their humanity. To illustrate this point, consider the story of a young prodigy who excelled academically but struggled socially due to their intense focus on intellectual pursuits. They may have found it difficult to form meaningful relationships or express emotions openly, leading to a sense of isolation and confusion about their identity beyond academic achievements. This disconnect between intelligence and emotional well-being can lead to lifelong struggles with self-worth and fulfillment. Another critical aspect is the fear of not living up to expectations. The gifted child often feels an immense pressure to achieve greatness, or at least maintain high standards set by society, parents, or themselves. This constant striving for perfection can create a sense of inadequacy when faced with setbacks or failures. Instead of seeing these as opportunities for growth, they become sources of shame and disappointment. Furthermore, the gifted child curse affects not only individuals, but also their relationships. The high expectations placed upon them often result in strained connections with friends and family members, who may feel overshadowed by their intellectual capabilities. This dynamic can lead to feelings of resentment or jealousy among peers, creating a sense of isolation within social circles. As these individuals enter adulthood, the burden of being the smart one does not diminish, but rather evolves into new forms of pressure. The transition from high potential to average adult status can be particularly challenging. They may find themselves struggling with career choices that do not live up to their early promise, or feeling unfulfilled by achievements that fall short of grand expectations. One poignant example is the phenomenon known as imposter syndrome, where highly intelligent individuals doubt their abilities and feel like frauds despite external evidence of success. This internal struggle reflects a deeper disconnection from self-worth beyond intellectual accomplishments, highlighting the need for personal growth beyond cognitive capacity. Forgiving oneself for not meeting these expectations is crucial in overcoming this curse. Accepting that being the smart one does not define one's worth as a person or their potential to lead a fulfilling life is essential. This realization allows individuals to break free from societal pressures and embrace their full humanity, including emotions and intuition. In conclusion, the gifted child curse represents a significant psychological burden for many highly intelligent individuals. While intellectual prowess offers numerous advantages, it can also create barriers to personal growth if not balanced with emotional depth and self-acceptance. By embracing one's shadow aspects, acknowledging fears and limitations, and recognizing that potential is not tied solely to intelligence, but encompasses all facets of human experience, individuals can transcend these limitations and lead more fulfilling lives. The phenomenon of the gifted child curse is not new. It has roots that trace back centuries, intertwined with cultural and societal expectations surrounding intelligence and achievement. In ancient Greece, philosophers like Aristotle emphasized the importance of intellectual virtues, but also recognized the balance between reason and emotional well-being. However, as societies evolved, so did the pressures associated with intellect, especially in academic and professional contexts. In the 19th century, the concept of genius began to take on a more romanticized, almost mystical quality, particularly in literature and art circles. Figures like Friedrich Nietzsche and Arthur Schopenhauer explored the duality of intellectual brilliance and its impact on personal well-being. Nietzsche's idea that one goes to extremes, where one must embrace both life-affirming values and destructive forces, reflects a broader understanding of human potential beyond mere intellect. Carl Jung, building upon these philosophical foundations, introduced the concept of individuation, which emphasizes the development of an individual's whole personality rather than just intellectual capabilities. He argued that repressing aspects of oneself, such as emotions and intuition, can lead to psychological imbalance. For gifted individuals, this repression is often more pronounced due to societal expectations and internalized beliefs about what it means to be smart. Historically, the term imposter syndrome was coined by psychologists Pauline Rose Clance and Suzanne Eames in 1978. Their research focused on high-achieving women who doubted their accomplishments, despite evidence of success. However, as awareness has grown, it is now recognized that imposter syndrome affects both men and women across various demographics, including highly intelligent individuals. The impact of the gifted child curse extends beyond personal well-being to broader social implications. In educational systems, there's a tendency to cater primarily to cognitive development, while neglecting emotional intelligence and creative expression. This imbalance can lead to underdeveloped social skills and difficulty in navigating interpersonal relationships, further exacerbating feelings of isolation and inadequacy. Moreover, the gifted child curse often intersects with issues of mental health, particularly anxiety and depression. Highly intelligent individuals may experience these conditions at higher rates due to their tendency to ruminate on past failures or perceived shortcomings. This introspection can be both a strength and a weakness. While it drives intellectual growth, it also fuels self-doubt and negative thought patterns. One lesser-known aspect of the gifted child curse is its manifestation in creative fields. Artists, writers, musicians, often characterized as highly intelligent individuals, are known for their intense emotional experiences and sensitivity to criticism or failure. This sensitivity can be traced back to early childhood, where creativity was overshadowed by academic pressures, leading to a disconnection between intellectual achievements and personal fulfillment. The role of parents and educators is crucial in mitigating the effects of the gifted child curse. Providing support that nurtures emotional development alongside cognitive growth is essential. Encouraging diverse interests, fostering self-acceptance, and creating safe spaces for open dialogue about successes and failures can help children build a healthier relationship with their intelligence. Technology has introduced new dimensions to this phenomenon in recent times. With the rise of social media and online platforms, highly intelligent individuals face unprecedented pressure to maintain public images that reflect constant success and intellectual prowess. This digital culture amplifies feelings of inadequacy as users are exposed to curated versions of others' lives, leading to heightened comparison and self-doubt. In professional settings, the gifted child curse can manifest through intense competition for prestigious positions or awards. The pressure to continuously outperform peers and achieve recognition can lead to burnout and dissatisfaction with career paths that do not align with personal values beyond intellectual achievement. Addressing the gifted child curse requires a holistic approach that integrates cognitive, emotional, and social development. Techniques such as mindfulness, therapy focused on self-compassion, and participation in diverse activities that promote well-being can help individuals navigate these challenges more effectively. Recognizing and valuing all aspects of human potential beyond intelligence is key to breaking free from the limitations imposed by the gifted child curse. Ultimately, understanding the depth of this psychological phenomenon allows for a broader perspective on personal growth and fulfillment. Embracing one's full humanity, including its flaws and imperfections, can lead to more authentic self-expression and a richer life experience. The mind's quest for certainty and control reaches its pinnacle in the realm of logic. It is here, amidst the cold precision of reason, where the final surrender begins. As we've seen throughout our journey, intelligence can be a powerful shield against uncertainty and vulnerability. But what happens when this shield fails to protect us from life's deepest questions? The answer lies not in more thinking, but in the quiet acceptance that there are things beyond the mind's reach. Imagine a vast desert, stretching as far as the eye can see, under an endless expanse of sky. This is the landscape of reason when faced with the mysteries of existence. Like explorers on this barren terrain, we have maps and compasses, tools for navigation, but no water or food to sustain us in the face of the unknown. We wander, searching for an oasis of meaning, only to find our thirst increasing as the vastness of the desert remains unchanged. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once wrote that the greatest hazard of all, losing one's self, can occur very quietly in the world, so quietly that one might not realize it has happened. This loss of self is precisely what occurs when we rely solely on our intellect for guidance. We become trapped in a cycle of thought and analysis, never moving beyond the confines of our minds to experience life fully. The philosopher Jung once dreamt he was a butterfly, fluttering about happily. When he woke up, he pondered whether it was really himself who had dreamt he was a butterfly, or if he was now a butterfly dreaming that it was a man. This ancient story highlights the fluidity between being and knowing. To be truly alive is not just to think, but to experience life as an embodied creature. To break free from this trap of endless thinking, we must begin by acknowledging our limitations. The philosopher Alan Watts famously stated, "If you want to find yourself, you have to start with the realization that you're lost." This recognition begins a journey inward, where we confront not just what we know, but how we know it. The mind is an incredible tool for problem solving and understanding, yet it is also limited by its own constructs of reality. The concept of not knowing, or in Japanese philosophy, mushin, emphasizes the value of emptiness and openness. It suggests that true wisdom lies not in accumulating knowledge, but in embracing the space between thoughts, a state where we are neither thinking nor not thinking. This paradoxical state is akin to being fully present without attachment to outcomes or judgments. To experience this state requires letting go of the constant narrative within our minds. The psychologist Carl Jung believed that true individuation, becoming one's authentic self, involves integrating both rational and irrational aspects of the psyche. By embracing the unknown, we open ourselves up to new possibilities beyond the constraints of logic. This surrender is not an act of giving up, but a conscious choice to relinquish control and embrace uncertainty. The poet Rumi expressed this beautifully. Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. This pull towards something deeper than thought requires stepping away from the mental constructs we have built around ourselves. The philosopher Eckhart Tolle describes this process as moving from a state of mind to one of being. It is about shifting our focus from the endless chatter within our heads to the quiet awareness that arises when thoughts subside. This shift allows us to experience life more directly, without the filter of constant analysis and judgment. One practical way to cultivate this state is through meditation or mindfulness practices. By observing the breath and sensations in the body, we can gradually train ourselves to remain present amidst the ceaseless flow of thoughts. The goal isn't to stop thinking entirely, but to notice when our minds wander and gently guide them back to the present moment. Another approach is to engage in activities that naturally foster a state of flow, where time seems to disappear, and we lose ourselves in the enjoyment of the task at hand. This could be anything from playing music, gardening, or engaging in any activity that captures our full attention without requiring constant mental effort. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote about how existence precedes essence, meaning that who we are is not determined by pre-existing concepts, but through our actions and choices in the world. This aligns closely with the idea of embracing not knowing as a way to live more authentically. Ultimately, the final surrender is an invitation to step beyond the confines of thought into the vastness of experience. It requires us to recognize that intelligence alone cannot answer life's deepest questions. Instead, we must learn to appreciate the beauty and mystery inherent in existence itself. As the poet Mary Oliver once said, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" This question challenges us not just to think about our lives, but to live them fully. In embracing this surrender, we open ourselves up to a deeper connection with the world around us. We recognize that there are aspects of existence beyond rational understanding. Beauty, love, intuition that enrich our experience in ways that logic alone cannot capture. This acceptance allows us to move past intellectual isolation and engage more fully with life's complexities. The journey towards this state involves acknowledging the limitations of thought while embracing the richness of experience. It is about recognizing that true wisdom lies not just in knowing but in living, in being present amidst the uncertainties and mysteries of existence. In the end, the final surrender to not knowing offers a path toward greater wholeness and authenticity. By stepping beyond the mind's constructs, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and a deeper appreciation for life itself. This is not a retreat from thought, but an expansion into a richer, more meaningful way of being. And so, as we conclude this journey through the complexities of intelligence and its limitations, let us carry forward the understanding that true wisdom lies in embracing our full humanity, flaws, doubts, and all. In doing so, we may find greater peace, purpose, and fulfillment in our lives. The concept of surrender to not knowing is deeply rooted in various philosophical and spiritual traditions, particularly those that emphasize intuitive understanding over rational thought. In ancient Greek philosophy, the term docta ignorantia, meaning learned ignorance, was coined by Nicholas of Cusa in the 15th century to denote a state where one recognizes the limitations of human knowledge and embraces humility as a path toward deeper wisdom. This idea reflects Carl Jung's own exploration into the limits of logical reasoning and his advocacy for acknowledging the unknown aspects of our psyche that cannot be fully grasped through intellectual means alone. Jung himself referred to this process as individuation, which is an ongoing journey towards self-realization and personal growth. It involves confronting one's shadow, integrating unconscious complexes into conscious awareness, and embracing paradoxes inherent in human experience. This transformative path requires stepping beyond the confines of conventional thought patterns, allowing for a more holistic understanding of oneself and the world. Historically, this idea has been echoed in Eastern philosophies such as Taoism and Zen Buddhism, which emphasize the importance of letting go of fixed ideas and concepts to attain enlightenment or satori. In these traditions, the act of surrendering to the moment-to-moment experience, without attachment to outcomes, is seen as a crucial step toward realizing one's true nature. One compelling example of this process can be found in the life of Albert Einstein, who, despite being renowned for his scientific genius, also expressed deep skepticism about the limits of human knowledge. In a letter written in 1954, Einstein stated, "The fairest thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion which stands at the cradle of true art and science." This sentiment underscores how even those celebrated for their intellectual prowess acknowledge the profound role that mystery plays in enriching our understanding. This perspective on surrender to not knowing also has significant implications for contemporary society, where an over-reliance on data-driven decision-making and algorithmic prediction can lead to a narrowing of human experience. The rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, while offering incredible possibilities, risks sidelining the intuitive aspects of human cognition that are essential for creativity, empathy, and ethical reasoning. Incorporating this wisdom into modern contexts involves cultivating practices that foster openness to new ideas and experiences. Meditation, creative expression, nature immersion, and other forms of experiential learning can help individuals reconnect with their innate curiosity and intuition. These activities encourage a shift from rigid adherence to preconceived notions toward a more flexible and adaptive approach to problem solving. Moreover, embracing not knowing necessitates acknowledging the inherent uncertainty in many aspects of life, particularly those related to emotions, ethics, and spirituality. This acceptance fosters a sense of humility that can lead to more compassionate interpersonal relationships and collaborative approaches to tackling complex societal issues. By recognizing that definitive answers are often elusive, we open ourselves up to exploring diverse perspectives and integrating multiple viewpoints. In educational settings, this mindset could transform traditional models of learning by placing greater emphasis on experiential education, critical thinking, and reflective practices. Such an approach would encourage students to engage with subjects not just through memorization, but also through exploration, experimentation, and personal reflection. This pedagogical shift could produce more rounded individuals capable of navigating the ambiguities inherent in both professional and personal domains. Furthermore, integrating not knowing into professional environments can enhance innovation by fostering a culture that values curiosity over certainty. In business and entrepreneurship, embracing ambiguity allows leaders to adapt quickly to changing market conditions, while also inspiring new ideas and approaches. Similarly, in fields such as healthcare, acknowledging the limits of medical knowledge promotes patient-centered care that respects individual experiences and preferences. Ultimately, surrendering to not knowing invites us to explore the full spectrum of human potential, recognizing both the power and the limitations of intellect. It calls for a balanced approach where analytical skills complement intuitive insights, fostering a richer appreciation for life's complexities and mysteries. This integration allows individuals to navigate the intricate web of existence with greater wisdom, compassion, and authenticity.